so now we've got our side, we've got our piece of plywood, and we're slowly bringing those two things together into our assembled version. So it looks like the product we've actually made. We're now going to make the acrylic, so yet again it's going to be a new design. So click on the new design. We're going to save it again just as we have with all the others. So this one we're going to call John Wilson acrylic, like so. Check it's going into the right folder as with the previous pieces, and click save. As soon as we do that, the name's going to appear up here, the name's going to appear here in a moment. Okay. It's again fairly simple to draw. We're going to click on, press on our R. You can click if you want, come up to there and click on rectangle, but I'm just going to press on my R. Again, thinking about the way we're drawing this, it's going to be helpful if I draw it in a top view. So I'm going to select that plane there. And again, it asks me to place the first corner, which I'll place on our axis and pull out. Now, this should, in theory, be the same size as the piece of plywood. This is not necessarily going to be the case for when you're making it. If you're making it, it may be that your sizes have varied slightly from the original intended size, if your sides are slightly longer or slightly shorter. But let's work on the basis it is the right size, and therefore this piece of acrylic is going to be the same as the piece of plywood we just created, 96 by 96. There's my sketch, and what I then need to do is I'm going to create the cutout pieces effectively for our polypropylene. Now, there's two ways we can go about this. We can do a circular polypropylene piece. If you're doing that, I would put a center line in. So you'll see when I choose the line tool and I move along this edge, it will go to, I'll see a green triangle appear when I hit the center of that. That would be a great way of me finding the center for my polypropylene piece, or in fact for the actual candle, where the candle's supposed to sit as well. So even if I'm going to do mine, I'm going to do mine not as a circular piece but as a square, but I'll still need a circle there, which is 38 millimeters, and press enter and enter. Now, if we zoom in, you can see why those two lines are useful, because at 96 by 96 moves me slightly off of the center, doesn't completely align with one of those natural grid spaces. So those two lines are really, really helpful. But once you've drawn that and you found the center, you can actually delete them just by selecting on them so they go blue, and do that. So that's my outside size. That's where my piece of candle is going to sit, and I also then want the piece where the polypropylene is going to sit. So I'm going to press my O this time for offset, and I select the curves it says, which are these curves, and I'm going to come in by an amount. Let's say I make it 10 millimeters for argument's sake, and press enter. And then I'm going to repeat exactly that. So press O, select the outside curve, and this time I'm going to come in by 12 millimeters. Okay, so what that means is, let's just think about the maths for a moment. So if that's 96 across here, minus 10, minus 10, that means that the length of this line should be 76. We can always check that. If I press D for dimension and I press both ends, there you go, that is 76. Adding a constraint there, yeah, okay, we'll cancel that. And our side here should be exactly the same, 76, and we're going to get that same message. What this means here is basically saying if you put effectively two dimensions on the same thing, you're over constraining it. It's already got a dimension here. It's already been told that this distance should be 10. So if you put, two dimensions will over constrain, so cancel that. So just worth remembering anyway, that means then that if that's 76, this will be 72 because we've got 2 millimeters difference here and 2 millimeters difference here. Let's just check. Press my D tool, 72. Okay, so kind of, yeah, just bear those numbers in mind. So there you go. There's our piece that we're going to cut out of acrylic. Now, there's 3 layers to the acrylic. 2 of them are identical. So I'm going to select, Control C and Control V, and then just move that across. And remember, as always, click your OK button. And then I'm going to Control V again. I'm going to move the 3rd and final piece across, and remember to click OK again. Okay, right, there you go. Now on the 3rd version, I can do some deleting. I don't need those lines, so I'm just going to select them and delete them. I don't need that hole there. All I need is a 96 by 96 square, which is what I've got there. You can delete some of these dimension lines if they're getting in your way. I could, of course, just have copied and pasted those and drawn that separately, but my advice would be always use the copy and paste. You really don't want to accidentally make that 94 or whatever, or 86, and by copying and pasting it, it's going to be the same. Okay, so there's our sketch. We're going to stop the sketch there, and we're going to do some extruding. Now at this point we're going to need to just make sure that when we go from our sketch to our body, we create what are effectively new parts or new components. So I'm going to press E, and I'm going to extrude that surface there. But on our extrude panel, I'm going to make sure it calls this a new component. Okay, and the distance is 3 because all the acrylic is 3 millimeters. So it's one selected. I've selected that surface. I'm telling it's a new component, 3 millimeters thick. Click OK. Now, at that point, our other drawings appear to have disappeared. Our other sketches appear to have disappeared. That's just because what generally happens in Fusion is that when you start working in bodies, the sketches turn off unless you turn them back on. So if I come into here, you'll notice that although this light is on for the sketches, my sketch 1 has been turned off. So let's just re-illuminate it, and there you go. We can see the second part. If I now press E for extrude, and I'm going to select a new component again, you'll notice that when we did this, we've now got component 1.1. That is component 1.1 that we just created. We're now going to do another new one, and we're going to select that surface, and again, same thickness, 3 millimeters. And you'll now notice we've now got component 1.1 and component 2.1. That's component 2.1. Same thing again, press E for extrude, select a new component, select the 2 faces, which are those 2 parts, type in the thickness and click OK again. And now, yep, you guessed it, we've got a component 3.1 as well. Okay, so let's have a look on our home screen. If we just click there, you can now see you've got 2 pieces of acrylic that are have got the cutouts, and 1 piece of acrylic that hasn't. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, and then in a moment we're going to join them together and insert them into that same drawing that's got our other pieces already in, this one here. Okay, so we're just going to click Save, we're going to click OK, and we'll come back and assemble that, make them look like acrylic, and insert them into the main drawing in a moment. Okay, save.